NEWSNITE on Sunjoy 99.7 FM. A few of your messages on this story which is still unfolding on the PDS matter. This one says, good evening, Evans. Nothing seems to be adding up. The same defense mechanism is being used. There's no clarity in the stories. What is the issue? Is Strand, our leaders were easily beaten to this? How is it possible that our leaders were easily beaten to this? How can you be defrauded in such an easy way? That's Gabriel in McCarthy Hills. Walanya says NDC is good in opposition when it comes to putting the government on his toes. They act like real Ghanaians. Congrats to them. Let us keep them opposition to do more for our motherland. Earlier in Tema says, good evening. So why do we continue to pay these our leaders when they cannot even do simple due diligence? Our leaders must resign and bow their heads in shame. Bad governance, incompetent leadership. That's his view there. Kwesi says, why would an unauthorized personnel sign a document he's not qualified to sign, and in addition forge the signature of the one who should have done the signing? Unless PDS promised him something, well, you cannot allege fraud in this matter. Nothing is proven yet. This is just still unfolding in the last 48 hours. And let's stay with this unfolding story, because in the last 2 hours or so, the information minister has been addressing a press conference and has announced that there is a full-scale inquiry the government has now launched into the matters that we've just been discussing, and that probe is expected to be completed within 30 days. The information minister also says that a team conducting the inquiry comprises insurance investigation experts, officials of the energy and finance ministries, and officials of the ECG and MIDA as well. It says the inquiry will determine the nature of the breaches and advise on suggested next steps. He says by Tuesday, the team is expected in Doha, Qatar, as part of the inquiry. All interested parties are cooperating with the inquiry at this stage. And as we've learned on the show, it appears that this team will also have to travel to Jordan, where the broker is, and it's suspected that he may hold the real key to unlocking this whole controversy, because just yesterday a letter had come from Al Qut, which is the reinsurers in Qatar, saying that they've cancelled the arrangement because the premium has not been paid. The information minister also says that a second team has now been tasked to continue engagement with the American government through its agency, the Millennium Challenge Corporation. It says this engagement is about the possible next steps after the inquiry and channels for sharing information as part of this inquiry. Remember that there is a possibility, in some have feared, that in the wake of this blowing scandal, the MCC might cancel this deal and we might lose almost $500 million. Listen to Kojo Ponkrumah laying out government's roadmap to fixing the problem.
Final efforts to ensure smooth transition between ECG and PDS officials are proceeding without incident as at this stage. Number 4, government reiterates that this breach was discovered by the due diligence of the Ghanaian authorities through ECG and with the support of state agencies. And here specifically, I want to share with you a few details. For the avoidance of doubt, the provision of the payment guarantee has always been a condition precedent and was never made or changed into a condition subsequent, as is being speculated by some persons. Secondly, the initial due diligence led by the transaction advisors did not detect anything wrong with the payment guarantees. Third thing is that it took a second level of checks, this time led by the Ghana side, that initially yielded the first responses from Al Qut that was confirming the guarantee. Next is that it took a third level of checks by the Ghana side, which then detected that there were anomalies within Al Qut, thereby triggering the fourth level of checks. And it is this fourth level of checks which involved sending an initial team from the Ghana mission in Qatar to engage with Al Qut officials for further verification. This fourth level further proved the anomalies and even suggested some untoward action, which is now the subject of the full-scale inquiry. The government will update all stakeholders on the outcome of the inquiry and proceed in accordance with law and the terms of the agreement as it works towards a final resolution of this matter.
The NDC minority also held a press conference just before the information minister's press conference, and they are alleging that this deal has blown up because of politics and involvement of and what they allege to be MPP individuals in the deal, creating looting and sharing. John Junapo, who is the former Deputy Energy Minister, addressed that news conference.
Assumption of office by the Akufo-Addo administration under the guise of a so-called local content participation, the government deliberately altered the original agreement in a manner and in a fashion to pave way for the contract to be awarded to a cabal of companies that have no track record in the energy sector. This cabal, upon critical investigation, has revealed that they are not experienced in the energy sector, but rather a group of friends, cronies, and MPP party apparatchiks, contrary to the original goals, objectives, and aspirations of the program. Members of the press, it has now become clearer and obvious, following recent developments, that Ghanaians have been given the biggest scandal in the energy sector. Another Boachi Ejako Akufo-Addo Ameri-like deal has been visited on Ghanaians by this corrupt and insensitive government with the award of ECG to its cronies. How can the Akufo-Addo government be so cruel to Ghanaians and ECG, a strategic institution with a workforce of 6,000 and an asset worth about 20 billion, be handed over and mortgaged to cronies, friends, and apparatchiks? This insensitivity, cruelty, and greed, characterized with corruption, must be thoroughly investigated and punished, because we cautioned them right from day one. Indeed, this is a clear opportunity for the special prosecutor to move into action, commence action, and do justice to this subject matter. We of the minority hold the Akufo-Addo government and President Akufo-Addo himself squarely responsible and liable for this embarrassing spectacle of international proportion. Government and officialdom are neck deep in this failed attempt to create, loot, and share.
Well, John Junapo also alleges that the finance minister knew about the questions surrounding the guarantees that now become a subject of a full-scale probe launched by government. Indeed,
I want to put on record that the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Oforiatta, was well aware that the guarantee that was posted was fraudulent. And I shall demonstrate to you with incontrovertible evidence that the minister knew that the guarantee was fraudulent. Ladies and gentlemen, I hold in my hand a letter signed by Mr. Ken Oforiatta on the 7th of March, 2019, appointing lawyer Akoto Ampao, a new lawyer of the president, during the case of the petition at the Supreme Court, to restructure the entire concession, constitute an SPV, and possibly incorporate additional people in the structure. In that letter, the minister confirms that the PDA structure was troubling, it was worrying, and was not fit for purpose.
Now, he mentions there that letter mentions that the deal was troubling, was not fit for purpose. We have a copy of that letter, and I must say that there's nowhere in that letter that those exact words are used by the finance minister. I want to quickly read for you what the finance minister said about, yes, that letter exists, was written on the 27th of March 2019 to lawyer Akoto Ampao, chairman of the negotiation committee, and it was titled Ghanaian Ownership of Power Distribution Services Ghana Limited, and in which the finance minister says, quote, following the conclusion of ECG's transfer of its power distribution business to PDS, it is of paramount importance to ensure the security of the PDS business and its ownership by Ghanaian shareholders. In order to safeguard Ghanaian ownership of PDS and to ensure that control of PDS is secured with Ghanaians in a unified manner, the ministry requires that the Ghanaian shareholding is consolidated and held by a single newly incorporated Ghanaian entity, the SPV, in which the initial Ghanaian shareholders will hold shares. The initial Ghanaian shareholders will be required to transfer their respective shareholdings in PDS and to the SPV. This structure preserves Ghanaian control of PDS in the SPV as opposed to three separate entities, as is currently the case, and ensures that 51% of the shares in PDS are always held by a Ghanaian entity. And so, keeping them honest, this document, as I read, never said anywhere that it was not fit for purpose, as the John Jonapo had stated. The information minister addressed the question about what the finance minister knew at his own press conference. That question was put to him. This was his reaction.
And I think that if there's any evidence, proper evidence, the claim is not, if there's any proper evidence, I'm sure you will challenge them to bring it forward so that we can all examine that particular evidence. As at now, is a narrative that is put out there, but I think we should all demand from them to produce the fact or to produce the evidence that the finance ministry was aware and acquiesced to this. The finance ministry will not necessarily say that go ahead with this transaction knowing that the guarantee is fraudulent. Please watch the words they have used, that the finance ministry knows the guarantee is fraudulent and has gone ahead with it. That claim cannot be true. But if there's any evidence that anybody has, which is even interpreting as such, I hope you are following my words carefully, any evidence or anything anybody has which is interpreting to mean that the finance ministry is aware that it is fraudulent and is proceeding, I think that person should bring it forward and let's have an opportunity to interrogate it.
Yes, that recording's a bit fast. That's not, it's apologies there. It's pretty fast. But that's Kojo Ponkroma addressing the press conference today, addressing the subject of what the finance minister knew, calling for further evidence from the minority on the allegations they've made. Still listening to NEWSNITE here on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, it's common knowledge that in some democracies, government have a love-hate relationship with the media. Now, public officials would always want good press from the media and journalists, depending on access, and then for journalists, depend on access to those in power for information. Although their criticism of government is met with anger and sometimes mistrust. Now, some governments often resort to boycotting media houses as a way of punishing them. Now, one person who knows this all too well is journalist and former information minister Fritz Barfour, who under whose watch as information minister, his government boycotted multimedia. As we continue our campaign for media freedom, he tells my colleague Araba Kumsin, boycotting media houses is not the way to go.
We had a dichotomous relationship. The government wanted the ministry to defend the actions of maybe the president or the party and all that. So we had to resolve that kind of issue. And we also had a love-hate relationship with some of the independent radio stations and independent press.
You're saying love-hate relationships. Can you be more specific? Was it the case that they were being irresponsible in their reportage?
The thing is that, you see, when you're dealing with partisan politics, you can easily take umbrage at what could come out of any of the media agencies. And for example, there was a problem with multimedia, and there was a decision which I didn't agree with, that multimedia will boycott multimedia, which as a journalist I thought was wrong. I don't think that government should ever boycott a particular radio station, however negative they are in terms of their relationship with the government. And so I got the backing of President Mills, and we were able to resolve it amicably.
It's interesting that you raised this issue about the boycott of multimedia. How did that affect government, looking back?
My political party is a progressive party, and progressives do not do the natural things, all right? We do not believe in class. We believe in a certain equality of opportunity and all that. People will debate and say, oh, they are champagne socialists and things like that. But the thing is that it makes us sometimes very wary of the established order. And so we've never really been comfortable in dealing with the press, and we haven't created the enabling environment for us to deal with them. And that is why the conservatives in our society seem to have more of a shrift when it comes to the press. I mean, I look at the press today and I see things that are happening that did not happen in our time and are more horrendous than our days.
Things such as what?
Well, I mean, you've got a problem with the killing of journalists. You've got journalists being arrested. You've got the gagging of opinions and all that. Yes, I mean, to a certain extent, they've always happened. But this is even worse. And even with the little contretemps we used to have, the press would jump on us. Right now, the press are a little bit guarded when dealing with the fact that the conservatives are in power. And they made so much noise when the conservatives were out of power that right now they are hidebound, because then they would go against themselves. I also think that it's also got to do with the kind of support base that the present government has. It's a more vigorous support base in terms of the support for the government than ours. Because, I mean, we as socialists or we as progressives would experiment and would come in with innovations that people will not be sure of. But with the current government, which is more populist than it should be as a conservative government, we're getting a situation where we see that the press is not taking them up to task. You say freedom. What freedom? I mean, Swale was killed. Manasseh had to run away. These are things that I think would have even brought our government down if it had happened in our time. And so why hasn't it happened? I'm not saying that that's the way to bring a government down, but I mean, the hue and cry was muted.
And that's Fritz Bafo, former information minister, and the Mills himself, a former journalist, and whose watch his government boycotted the multimedia. As you know, this government also did boycott us until just last week. Let me bring in communications lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Journalism, Dr. Eche Sikanku. Dr. Sikanku, thank you for your time here on NEWSNITE.
Thanks very much, Evan.
Very interesting ideological analysis from Fritz Bafo and how these two ideologies, MPP's socialist ideology, as he calls it, and the MPP's, as he says, conservative ideologies, and how both ideologies tend to define their relationships with the media. Your own take on this?
Yes, that's interesting. You know, there are two separate ideologies, conservatism and liberalism. So the NDC in Ghana believes in social democracy, and the MPP believes in capitalism or property-owning democracy. So, which means that the NDC subscribes to the principles which Fritz was talking about, equality, social justice, egalitarianism, and it is a political party that has its history steeped in probity, accountability, and justice, that kind of stuff. And then the NPP, on the other hand, is center-right, right? So they believe in the free market. They believe in capitalism. They believe that the market should reign, individual rights, property-owning democracy, and all that kind of stuff. So yes, there are those differences, and people will argue an end forever, and we cannot have the argument today that they are all the same, because the MPP comes, they profess capitalism and free market, but they end up doing populist and mass-based interventions. And people will say the NDC comes, and then they also muddle the waters and all of that kind of stuff. So we'll not get into that. But the relationship to press freedom, the point is that both ideologies are steeped in a larger ideology of democracy, which is what the country has decided to practice. And we all know that one of the fundamental requirements of democracies is freedom of the press. That is also because there is a relationship between freedom of the press, democracy, and good governance. So there's an expectation that a free society in which the press functions as it should be would be able to fulfill some of the fundamental tenets of democracy, which include holding government accountable, providing a platform for vigorous debate, both in support and in opposition to the government, and giving a voice to the voiceless so that the government can address the needs of the downtrodden in society. That is the fundamental reason why press freedom is important in any democracy. So now linking it to ideology. So we've done the first one, I understood ideology, now press freedom, and then trying to link it to the two ideologies. Yes, definitely the MPP as a free market, capitalist-based, ideologically inclined party, you would expect that, of course, they'll be subscribing to freedom, right? They'll subscribe to pluralism. They'll subscribe to press freedom in the highest form as possible, because this is a government that believes that society develops and good governance is advanced when people have the freedom to be able to exercise choice.
And in fact, that is encapsulated in their own motto. The MPP's motto is development and freedom.
Correct, right? So after all, the idea is that democracy must work for the people. The democracy must deliver the goods. And the idea is that knowledge is power. And so if we have information or knowledge, then we are able to exercise choices and make well-informed choices in a good democracy. So that's for the MPP. Now NDC. Social democracy. Yes, they believe in social democracy, social justice, freedom and equality, irrespective of your race or ethnicity or social class and all of that. But fundamentally, as a democratic-based party, you would expect also that they subscribe to the same levels of press freedom, except that, as Honorable Fred had said, you'd expect that it will be extolled to the highest heavens, especially under a conservative or a party that steeps its very identity in the principle of freedom and the free markets and all of that. So I think in both parties you would expect it, except that, as he explained, you would think that it will be to a much more higher level in a party that is center-right, NDC center-left. But in a party that is center-right, which believes that freedom must reign,
so,
government should not clamp down on individual rights.
Having done analysis, would there be a surprise to when you look at the World Press Freedom Index that it is under this particular government with the ideology that you just explained, that we've dropped from being number one on the continent in terms of press freedom to number 4?
Yes, it's very unfortunate because a lot of the times we as a country pride ourselves as being the avatar or the exemplar of democracy in Africa. We've been extolled every now and again for our democratic records and credentials. So of course, it's unfortunate, it's sad, and it's a cause for concern that Ghana would come down the rankings in terms of press freedom. So yes, that is definitely an issue that every Ghanaian should be concerned with, not just for the political reasons, but also for the developmental and good governance reasons that are connected to press freedom.
I'm grateful that you joined us. That's Dr. Eche Sikanku joining me in the studio with another journalist, George Yafe, with the Business News. George, what do you have in the headlines tonight?
Coming up in business, actually, I'll be telling you what we have that could the proposed tax measures outlined in the mid-year review deal with revenue shortfalls before the end of this year. And what about having a Ghanaian or an African as the IMF boss, a myth or a reality? We hear from the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, who is also the chair of the African Caucus at the Washington-based lenders institutions.
Promo way there, I had the. Some gusu yusu mi mumu no. If you say MTN Exima Chadiano, Edia to table. Brand new Samsung 65-inch UHD Smart TV. Na brand new 2019 Hyundai. And I feel 3,000 Ghana there. You should say mono. MTN Momo. Still, Misaka, the journey of 1,000 smiles. Yashasi 10 years ago. And to celebrate this milestone, MTN give you away exciting prizes in the MTN Momo Attend promo. Yeah, you use Momo no. You could win one of the 920 2019 Hyundai i10 cars. Yes, some of Samsung Smart TVs for baby. And they up to 3,000 cedis e-cash every month. And a grand prize, 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe in the MTN Momo i10 promo. Into sign it on and then keep using your MTN Momo. Now when it big, if it's happening, I could see August only on Ghana's best network. Dial *120#. Now check your points. Terms and conditions apply. Just Momo it. We're there for you everywhere you go.
The Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited's Back to School promotion is here with us again. From the 1st of August to the 30th of September, Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited is giving a generous 10% discount on all school items like textbooks, pens, pencils, erasers, exercise books, and much more across all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Takoradi, and Cape Coast. Parents, teachers, and students, please hurry while stocks last. For more information, call us on 0302 764 101 or 0302-764-209 or email info@kingdomgh.com. You can also visit our website www.kingdomgh.com. Kingdom Books, where quality and affordability are both assured. Terms and conditions apply.
Honey, I need to get some.
But I don't have cash on me. Let me get some fuel quickly and let's go.
And how are you going to get the fuel? I thought you said you didn't have cash on you. What is this one?
My Puma card.
All it takes is a card. The Puma card allows you to buy fuel cash-free from all Puma energy filling stations. You can use your Puma card with any Visa points of sale and ATM across the country. The Puma card also works on mobile money. You get amazing discounts when you fill up with your Puma card. So register for free and get your Puma card instantly at any Puma filling station.
And you only got one for yourself, eh?
Yeah, would I have had my peace of mind?
Oh, thank you, honey.
And where are you going?
I'm getting something from the shop real quick. I need to test the card.
Puma card. Cash-free convenience.
Welcome back to Business on NEWSNITE. Now, government is now hoping to end the year with a mobilized revenue of almost 59 billion Ghana cedis. This was after it revised this target marginally after I reviewed the estimates in the 2019 budget. But could these proposed tax measures help deal with the challenges in mobilizing revenue by December this year? We have the details in the following report.
Fiscal data from the Finance Ministry shows that government should have mobilized 278 billion cedis in taxes and grants by June this year. However, it has realized about 23 billion Ghana cedis for the first 5 months of the year. Now, holding all variables constant for the rest of the year, government could end the year getting 45.4 billion cedis in total revenue. Now, this should mean that there would be a shortfall of 13.4 billion cedis to hit the proposed target of 58.8 billion cedis. So unless these compliance measures that government is working on get the desired results, then we could end the year with another shortfall in revenue. Well, for the optimists, it is the hope that things pick up greatly in the last quarter of this year to help the situation. Some analysts are also worried about this because there are fears that the new tax measures may not bring more than 1 billion Ghana cedis in revenue. There are also fears about how that could impact on government's budget deficit target of not more than 5%.
And that was a Business Desk report. Now, President Akufo-Addo has vowed to improve the business environment to aid the growth of businesses and attract more foreign investment. The president said this when he opened the meeting of the African governors and finance ministers in Accra. The president argued that improving the business environment is very important to promote intra-Africa trade.
The continuing stability of the macroeconomy and our currency, the cedi, reduction in inflation from the 15.4% we inherited to 9.1% in June 2019, reduction of lending rates, amongst others, are examples of some of the steps that have been taken to grow the Ghanaian economy. We are keen on establishing a business-friendly economy to attract foreign direct investment, to exploit our country's great potential on mutually satisfactory terms.
President Akufo-Addo Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says he would use his chairmanship of the Africa Caucus at the IMF and World Bank to push for favorable policies and programs for the region and Ghana. The minister was recently elected as one of the leaders in the largest blocs on the IMF World Bank region. The caucus is made up of finance and governors of central banks in Africa. Speaking to Joy Business at the ongoing Africa Caucus meeting in Accra, Ken Ofori-Atta says that the conversation must start now.
World Bank position has been a little bit more competitive. My former minister Ngozi was clearly seen to be someone who could represent us. The Americans traditionally have gotten that seat and they continue to at the World Bank. And so that is what occurred. Currently with Lagarde's resignation from there, it leaves the position open. IMF has also traditionally been an European seat. So we need to begin sort of the dialogue as to where to go. But at least for the first time in the fund and the bank's history, both chairs of the World Bank Development Committee and the IMF Committee, South Africa and Ghana, are heading it. So small strides are being made. We need to push for some more for the future.
Do you think that it will be realized very soon in terms of somebody even from Ghana getting to these positions?
So clearly, in the same vein in which it was a surprise for the world and ourselves that Kofi Annan made it, it's the same way in which we if we continue with this trajectory of a stronger, more confident Africa, I think we'll break through that too.
What about policy? And that was Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Now, the Managing Director of Republic Bank Ghana, Farida Anta, says one of the surest ways to reduce interest rate drastically is to look at the high non-performing loans and firmly stabilizing the economy. The Managing Director's proposals are coming at a time when the President wants measures instituted to reduce the high interest rates in the country to a single digit. He says dealing with some of these issues can greatly help the situation.
Yeah, well, I think the government and the Bank of Ghana has done a good job so far bringing it from the mid to high 20s. The rate is now at 16, the policy rate. Ideally, you want it to continue to move downwards, but there are some inflationary issues that you have to manage. You also have to look at the FX rate and the demand against for dollars and the reserves. So you have to balance all of those in the equation. As I said, the cost of borrowing is increased by the NPL, so we need to deal with some of the NPLs. But as you bring the rate down, while some would benefit, there are some who lose. And so it's a balancing act, and I believe it after maybe the election period, things settle down, there's some more, I wouldn't say stability, I think there's a lot of stability in the market, but there's always during an election period some uncertainty. I expect over time we would see the rate starting to trend up again.
Mr. Anta was speaking to Joy Business after posting some significant jump in its profits for half year, reaching 39 million Ghana cedis. It shows that the results also showed that there have been some significant improvements in other areas of the bank's operations. And that's all for Business on NEWSNITE. It was brought to you by MTN Business, Kingdom Books and Stationery, and First National Bank. We are the bank that understands your business. First National Bank. How can we help you? And that's all for Business on NEWSNITE. Looks like this PDS issues,
it's not going away anytime soon. The team is leaving Accra next Tuesday to follow up on it to get clarity. And then as it emerged on Top Story, it looks like they also have to go to Jordan because that's where the broker is, and it appears that the real issue is between the broker and the reinsurers in Qatar. So if you're going to Qatar, you might as well go to Jordan as well. So yeah, I mean this is going to go a long way. But government has given itself 30 days to resolve this, and so yeah, we have timelines to work with.
We'll wait and see.
Okay, George, thank you very much. Let's do some sports now. In the sports sector, you have no problems like that, do you? It's smooth sailing.
Absolutely. Unless you're asking me about the future of
eventually.
Oh, Kwesi Appiah.
No, I have no news on that. But Egypt have made a firm decision regarding who will be the coach of the national team, at least.
Is it Kwesi Appiah?
No, it's not Kwesi Appiah. He's not going to be a foreigner.
I thought they were poaching him.
Well, it appears that is not going to happen, at least not under Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who's ordered that the national football team, the Pharaohs, will no longer be coached by a foreigner, effective immediately. Egypt has won the Africa Cup of Nations a record 7 times. Egyptian coaches have won it 5 times. Now, earlier this month, a former Egypt coach called for a military officer to head the Egyptian Football Federation after the host nation was knocked out of the Africa Cup of Nations. Egyptian Football Association board members announced their resignation from their posts and accepted the resignation of the Egyptian national team technical staff headed by Mexican coach Javier Aguirre after the Pharaohs failed to reach the quarterfinals for the first time since 2004. That elimination marked Egypt's worst ever performance as AFCON host. So Egypt will no longer hire foreign, at least not under their current president, because given that order. And as far as we understand, is where there's law in Egypt. Down here in Ghana, we are still not sure about the future of Coach Kwesi Appiah. He met the president, by the way, earlier this week, but we still don't know the details of that particular meeting, how it impacts his future as a national team coach. So we continue to wait. While we wait, though, Arsenal have signed a player. Your Manchester United, Nicolas Pepe has signed for Arsenal. What an attack that will be, by the way. Lacazette, Aubameyang, Nicolas Pepe. They will beat everybody.
When they signed Lacazette and Aubameyang, that's what they said. They said we'll beat every. Where did they end?
No.
It's Arsenal we are talking about.
No, they'll beat everybody.
I'm saying to you.
Everybody.
I'm saying to you.
Manchester United is struggling to sign Harry Maguire.
Yes,
What's
I mean,
happening?
it's okay. I mean, it's a struggle. And
Bruno Fernandes?
You see, the point, the difference between Arsenal supporters and Man United supporters is that we know where we are.
Where are you?
We know that we are going to struggle. Okay. But Arsenal supporters, we know they're not going to struggle. They will do Potter, but they have some hope.
Who finished it?
And then their hearts are broken.
Who finished it this season?
It's between us and them.
Thank you very much, Evans. That's it for sports.
Thank you very much, Hans. And George is still hanging around shaking his head, but he knows what I'm saying is true. Well, commercial kinky millers at Obrom, I never even knew that something like that. Commercial kinky millers at Obrom in Kumasi today clashed with the city authorities' sanitation enforcement task force as angry men and women denied the team access to inspect their premises. Now, officials had stormed the site where kinky is mashed and processed into local confectionery known as Ike's Kinky for sale to public, following reports of sanitation and hygiene breaches. Oh my goodness, I love Ike's Kinky. Love FM's Erastus Asari Donko has more.
Large baskets full of kinky sit in batches on the ground by the main Kejetia Swame roundabout road, exposed to the dust, flies and other insects. Young men and women who look unkempt unwrap balls of kinky with their bare hands. Inside the mill is the deafening sound of about 50 machines mashing kinky. Attendants stuff balls of kinky down the machines with their bare hands, and as the soft, sticky stuff comes out, they scoop it back in the same manner. Occasionally, they are seen washing their arms from the elbow back into the mashed kinky, ready for the market. This is the situation the enforcement team had moved to inspect and take appropriate action. But members were forced to retreat as the marshers ordered them out amid threats of violence. Leader of the team, Isaac Basanyin, says it was wise to retreat, re-strategize, go back and enforce the law.
Though we've come back, we are going there again. The issue is we are talking about public health. Why should you allow you to mill corn or kinky, which is unwholesome, and then again the environment that we were selling is not the best? So in view of this, we are going back with a full force, probably with the military or police, to ensure that the right thing is done.
A mix of mashed kinky, sugar and milk, bottled and sold from this hub, gets to unsuspecting patrons who use their money to buy potential diseases in the name of food.
Well, for the likes of myself, I'll carry my own blender around. When I feel like it, I'll just get Ice Kinky and blend it and, just go. Ice Kinky on the go. Well, work is progressing steadily on the construction of the Lekma Road, where residents agitated 2 weeks ago, demanding government make good on their promises to fix the dilapidated road. The residents claimed, among others, that the pothole-riddled road had often been the cause of many pregnant women losing their babies, and some developed respiratory diseases. Following threats of demonstration, government moved machines to the ground, and Roads Minister Kwesi Amakwata has assured construction works will be completed by January 2020. My colleague Malik Dabu has been interacting with some of the residents who say they are happy with progress so far.
On chippings on this road and pave them. Afterwards, they will put what they call asphalt on top of that. I have two residents here who I have conversations with, Jennifer Obeng and Nana Kwame. They live on both sides of the road. Each of them will be telling us what they feel about the rate of work going on and what their expectations are. Jennifer, let me start with you. You live here. How do you feel that construction has started on the road?
Oh, for now I feel great because while they have started it, we think they will finish it for us.
What's your assessment of the rate of work being done so far?
We are expecting them to finish fast because the dust here is too much.
Let me talk to Nana Kwame. Nana Kwame, you live around here. What do you see happening on this road?
Well, in terms of dust, it becomes a pain hanging white clothes or white shirts outside. White things have to be always hung inside because of the dust. And in terms of our cars too, plying this route with a car, you would always have to be visiting the shop. It's a bit of a drag.
Now it's being constructed. What do you think?
I'm happy it's being constructed. But I expected, since the whole noise was about the Lekma Hospital and they are facing much problem there with their machines, I expected work to be started there. Though I'm happy it was started just by my residents. I would have been much glad if it had been started on the Lekma Hospital side of the road.
I'll talk to another person who lives and plies on this road, and I'll find out for him what his assessment of this.
My name is Archibald, and I use this road a lot. To me, I'm not excited until I see a finished work, because we've seen it. People come and then they do something, and then they go. Then they vanish. They vanish into thin air. So to me, until we in residences here see that the work is completed, it's asphalted, is what do you call it, marked with all the necessary things, street lights, we are not too excited. We want to see excitement when the work is done.
Well, the minister says it will be done by January 2020. We'll wait and see. Well, if you're one of those who is keen on hiring professional criers, wailers, for your funeral, well, I have bad news for you, because they've announced and advertised an increase in their fees from 2,000 cedis all the way up to 7,000 cedis. Well, my colleague in Kumaso Heminteria has the following report.
Immediately oblige an interview, taking time off a workshop to speak with me.
Oh, we do it normal. When you call us and book for a funeral, we come to your place, we walk the grounds, we assess it, and then we price you.
She says though they work in groups, they are yet to officially form an association.
I and my groups, we meet, but we don't meet because our husbands has died for a long time. So whenever we decide to go to a place, we just get up.
Miss Dockley tells me high demand for their services amid increase in fuel prices and general economic hardship has pushed them to adjust their fees. She reviews 6 Dutch singing criers who used to charge 5,000 Ghana cedis a day will now provide the service for between 7,000 Ghana cedis and 8,000 Ghana cedis.
The demand has gone high, so we have to change our prices. Our prices has changed. It has gone up from where it was. So whenever we went for a program and we shared the money couldn't do anything. So we have to discuss it and raise it. It depends on the funeral. Some funerals, you can't charge them high. Some you can charge them. So it depends on the funeral. At first, we charge 5,000, 6,000 for a higher funeral or a funeral which is big. But now it has raised to 8,000, 7,000.
Miss Dockley says clients could pay even more depending on the status of the disease and bereaved families, as well as the form the wailing will take.
Crying with swag, 3,000, and then deep wailing, and then shouting 2,700.
2,700 just for wailing. Oh my goodness. Well, that's a story in Ashanti Regional Capital, Kumasi. My name is Evans Mensah. Up next is Personality Profile with Archie Hesse, the CEO of GIPS. You want to stay tuned for that. Enjoy the rest of your evening.